Hello, and welcome to the Simply Business Interview Podcast, a podcast created by business owners for business owners. I am your host, John Jennings. And I believe that most business owners are working way too hard for much too little. And one of our issues is that we overcomplexify things. I believe the answers are almost always within us or within our reach. I like to say that I'm a simple man with simple ideas. So welcome to Simply Business. All right, today I am joined by Casey Valiant, the owner of Signarama Evansville. I'm looking forward to learning about Casey's journey and his business over there. Casey, why don't you first just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure thing. So as John said, I'm Casey Valiant. I own the Signarama Evansville location. So Signarama is a fantastic organization. There's about 400 stores in the US and there's 850, 900 stores worldwide. So it's a massive organization. And as far as franchises go, it's fantastic. I know that there's a lot of different types of franchise business out there. Some are all up in your business. Some just kind of give you the name and let you go on. Signarama has kind of navigated a pretty sweet spot in they're there if we need it. And for new owners, for new people who don't know the industry as well, they are absolutely helpful to reach out. I've been doing this a very long time. I try to give back to the system, to the organization as much as possible. And also they don't really need to bother me. I pay my royalties. I do all the things that need to be done. And so it's a really good relationship, really good, solid organization. So so people ask me when did I start? And that's kind of an interesting question. So I'll start this way. My grandfather started a rubber stamp company in Evansville in 1957. And that same company has gone through iteration after iteration. How many of you use rubber stamps anymore? No. Okay. So we still make a few rubber stamps. There are still some clients that make rubber stamps and we still ship them out all over the country. So, but that is definitely not our primary business anymore. My parents took over in 85 and they started computerizing. They started asking the vendors, what do the most successful rubber stamp companies do? Like, how do they see the coming decrease in business? Because they could see it, computerization was just starting, fax machines were coming out, all that stuff was starting to eat away at some of the industry of rubber stamps. So they started asking their vendors what are the best rubber stamp companies doing? And the best ones were either getting into traditional print. So they would become a print shop. So, think of business cards and flyers and posters and all that stuff. And then another good segment of them, they went into the sign industry. So that's what my parents did starting in 85. They really started buckling down into the sign industry. They started figuring out how to make banners. They started figuring out how to make vehicle graphics. And I was 7 at the time in 85. So there's pictures of me in our old shop and I'm sitting there with my 2 older brothers and I'm putting stamp handles in these stamps. And, and then over the course of the years, I'm doing different jobs. And we were, as a family business, we may have been a little bit different in how my parents treated us. They didn't necessarily want us to be a part of the business. And I say that I've had some really interesting conversations recently with family business advisors, and it's been challenging my thinking about how to handle family businesses. So my parents, what their strategy was, they wanted a better life for me and my 2 older brothers. They didn't want us to have to work as hard. I mean, they were putting 90 hours a week, both of them, into this business, and they didn't want that for their kids, right? None of us want that for our kids. We want our kids to have an easier, better, happier, more fulfilled life. So they did everything that they could to introduce us to the concepts of the business, to get us working. I mean, all 3 of us have excellent work ethics, and it's because of them. But they wanted to keep the door open for us to do whatever we wanted to do with our lives. And my 2 older brothers, they're off and they're very successful in what they're doing. Same thing. When I graduated from Purdue, I moved out to Salt Lake City, and I made multi-million-dollar video games for the military, flight simulators. I was a 3D modeler, so a lot of same kind of computer graphics. I was still into that,
Right.
but it wasn't science by any means.
Yeah.
So in about 2005, 2006, I was living down in Texas at the time, and mom and dad they contacted me, and they're like, "We're ready to retire. We're tired. It's a successful business, but we're just ready. Do you want to come back to the business and help us get it ready to sell? Look at it for like 5 years. We'll put a 5-year plan together. We'll get it profitable. We'll get all the things in place. We'll sell it. And then all three of us can just kind of go our own ways." I'm like, sure, I'll do that. So
here you are.
Yeah. So, if you think back to 2006, put a 5-year plan together. 2007 was great. 2008, 2009, not so much.
Yeah.
So
lived through that.
That really put a hamper on being able to sell the business for them to be able to retire. So it wasn't until much later, 2018, 2019, I really started looking at, I think I could actually run this business. I think I could have fun doing this. And I mean, at the time I started as a graphic designer, right? I started at just in one of the worker bee seats. That's what my role was. And that was the best thing that I could do for the company at that point. But over the course of the years, I learned all these different, I became the sales manager. I'm a terrible salesperson. I love marketing, but sales, the details, details, they just get me every time. So put me in front of a crowd and tell me to talk about Signarama, and I will talk. Put me in front of a client and tell me to get all the details for their sign. I will need somebody else.
Well, you'll talk. That's the problem.
I will talk. Right. That does not make me a salesperson. Yes. Yes.
When I talk to prospective salespeople or coach salespeople, that's one of the first things I say. You talk way too much.
Yes. You are not going
to
be a good salesperson.
Makes you a great personality to attract the people in, also is a distraction when it comes to sometimes closing the deal. Well, that's fascinating. Yep. I share a little common bond with if I had stayed in it, or if my dad had stayed in it, he would have been I think sixth or seventh generation of newspaper people.
Wow.
He got out of it when I was young.
Yeah.
But I watched my grandparents run a small town newspaper up until the late 70s when basically they closed up shop. They closed up shop pre-computer age, the old fashioned linotype machines. I used to go down there and help my grandfather,
set and organize type,
setting the type. I learned how to do all that stuff when I was a kid. Dirty, nasty work. And my dad's like, I don't want any part of this. And he went a different direction, as did his siblings. So the business ended there. And then it was funny, 20 years later, internet comes out. I get into computer. I was in computer programming, but I got into web design. I got into graphic design and suddenly started doing all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, this is just, in a way, it's the same concepts, just in a totally new platform. I'm like, well,
absolutely.
I kind of did continue the legacy a little bit, just in a different way. And now my son is in public relations. So he's in marketing and public relations and communications and doing all that kind of stuff. I'm like, in our own way, we actually have continued the legacy
certainly. There's that influence that you have on your kids, and what they're around when they're young does shape what their interests are and what they feel like they're good at. So absolutely.
Yeah. I was in a print shop not long ago that has a lot of old stuff as well as new technology, and all the smells and everything came back, and it was like, oh man, I'm like, it's I feel unique, like I'm home again. I mean, it threw me back like 40 years, 50 years. It was actually kind of cool. So, man, that was a lot of great stuff. And interesting about Signarama. So, the idea that they've figured out this balance. I have been in large scale restaurant franchises.
Sure.
Where
this is what will go on your menu, and this is what you'll charge, and this is what will go into the
this is where you buy your cheese from.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everything is dictated. And then,
Yep.
Focal Point is actually a franchise, and they're much sound like Signarama. It's like, we're here for you. Here's material, here's concepts, here's marketing plans, here's stuff you can use. If you're on your own and you're doing great. If you want some help, we're here for you,
Yep.
And boy, it's great when you find that right niche. That's interesting. So you decide to take around the business. Now, did you make the Signarama decision, or was that something that happened before you came on board?
Oh, there we go. Are you back?
Oh, we lost you for a second.
Yeah.
We'll edit that out.
Okay.
So let me, I'll just re-ask the question.
Yeah.
Did you make the decision as far as going to Signarama and becoming a Signarama franchise, or was that something your parents decided, or in that transition?
So they when they took over in 85, they were just figuring out the sign industry. And I mean, the sign industry in 85 looks completely different than it does now. So they were doing just fine up until the mid 90s. And that's when digital printing really started taking off. Wide format printing, the first wide format printers were coming out in the mid 90s. And that's when that industry really, really started to explode in terms of ease of use. And so they saw that entering that market was going to become really, really easy to do. And they wanted to be ahead of that game. So in 96, they looked at all the different sign franchises at the time, and Signarama was the only one that allowed us to co-brand. So we were Ameristamp. The original name of our company was Ameristamp. And so we became Ameristamp Signarama. And that's how we ran from 96 until probably 2014, 2015, when we dropped the Ameristamp name. We, like I said, we still do stamps, but I mean, that industry has just been on a steady, gradual decline for many, many years. So 2014, we dropped that name from all of our marketing, from our building, all of that. So we've been a Signarama franchise since 96.
Okay. That's almost 30 years now.
Yep. It's quite a while.
That is that, I don't know how long Signarama has been around. Are you one of the longer standing franchises?
So, oh man, I'm going to get in trouble not knowing this exact date, but they started their first one, I think in 88 is when it actually started. So from 88 to 96, there's a few still left, but yeah, we're one of the few remaining Signaramas from that era.
Yeah. Awesome. That's cool. So, I usually ask a question along the lines of, and you can kind of take it however you'd like. I usually ask a question about kind of what was your biggest surprise as being a new business owner. You had this kind of transition phase, so maybe there wasn't as many like outright surprises, but there was that day sometime after the switch was flipped, and you're now in charge. Your parents are off in Florida.
Retired. Yep.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, there's nobody to go to. It's on me. What was that first time that happened, and what
it was a Tuesday. No. So the first time that it really hit home with me, and I have a very close relationship with my parents. It wasn't always rainbows and butterflies. There was some contention. There was some animosity is a really, really strong word, but it was not always peaceful in that transition when I was learning the industry, call it from 2010, when we decided, okay, we're not going to be able to sell the business, to 2017, 2018, when I started to get serious about it. In that 7 or 8 year span, I was stepping all over their toes. I was saying, nope, I'm going to take this responsibility without the responsibility ever being given to me. And, so I'm sure you've dealt with a lot of family businesses where there's good spousal leadership of the business. And usually that only happens when there's defined sandboxes. So,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the wife is customer service and the husband is operations. Or maybe it's reversed. Whatever it is, they have very, very defined sandboxes, and they counsel and they suggest and they offer opinions, but they don't make decisions in those sandboxes, in each other's sandboxes.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how we were being run until Casey comes along and says, "Where's my sandbox?" And not knowing, I mean, imagine my just naivete and my inexperience in business, right? So I just started creating my own sandbox by taking some of each of theirs. And so that just caused a lot of conflict. The day that we signed the papers was glorious. It felt like that was the beginning of our restoration of our relationship. It was like, okay, they have no more responsibility. They have no more expectation of what could go wrong. It's all on me.
Yeah.
And that was a delightful experience. That was really good.
Was that you said about 2017 around then?
Yeah. So I they retired in 2019. So I finalized the purchase in fall of 2019.
Okay.
And so that winter, I was having a conversation. We were talking about, I was talking with one of my employees. She's been with me for like 25 years, just knows everything about the industry, everything about our business, everything about our history. And I was talking with her and a couple of other employees about like I even forget what the thing was, but it was something major that was like, should I do this or should I do this? And I was having a really hard struggle about, well, this or this. I overthink. And she looked at me and she said, "Casey, it's your business. Just make the choice." And I'm like, oh yeah, it's my business. I can just make the choice. I don't have to ask for agreement from anybody. I can just make the choice. And so that was, I admire her being able to speak truth into my situation at that time, and for her to do it kindly and to where I could hear it and understand what she was actually saying. So I think that was one of the first times that I realized that, all right, this is not just my name on the business. There's responsibility along with it. And it's fun too. It can be a lot of fun. But you also have to take that seriously. You can't just say, I'm just going to make crazy decisions. I've got 16 people that are kind of depending on this as their income. So I don't want to just make crazy decisions all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's something freeing about that when you come to that realization that, this is on me. I spent over 2 decades in corporate, and you had to get a requisition form for a new pad of paper, right? And when I crossed over into small business, that was one of the first, like, most freeing things. Like, okay, you're responsible for this, do it. I'm like, well,
yep.
How do I do it? Well, just do it.
Just do it.
It was like, wow. Much of the world actually operates this way. Actually, most of the world operates this way. It's just, we get into these comfort zones of following these processes and relying on lots of red tape and other stuff. And it is freeing when you just go, I was that way with podcasting. I had been thinking about podcasting forever.
Yep.
And, finally, like, my wife was like, why don't you just
do it?
Do it.
Just call somebody up and record something.
And I'm like, and I could start trying to make excuses. I'm like, well, gosh, there's really no excuse.
Right.
Now's a good time.
So when did this start? When did you start?
I launched it in January.
Okay.
So I publish almost every week.
Yep.
I've missed a few weeks here and there for vacations or, personal issues and stuff. But so I think I just published episode 25, just Excellent. Went out this week. So almost every week. Started in January, and I've got, I think, 8 or 9 in the can. So this will be 6 or 8 weeks out, something like that, when
Excellent.
we get this one out.
That's great.
And I've met just some amazing people from every walk of life. You said you'd listen to several of them. I mean, they're from lawyers to small business owners to
Nonprofit.
Nonprofits,
Yeah.
done a couple of nonprofits. Yeah. So I just, love it. Giving people chance to, kind of share what they do. And I mean, your passion for signage comes out. I mean, it's funny how, it was ingrained and you started with rubber stamps, but you've kind of, this has been in your blood.
Yeah.
To the point that,
and I tell you, the thing that has really changed in my mind is, the sign industry itself is a blast. I enjoy every single day that I come in, and there's always something new to explore. There's always something, a new challenge. But what I found is that our company, it's not about signs. It's about people. And if I can treat my people the way they deserve to be treated, they're going to stay with me. They're going to be super productive. But if I focus on signs, it's going to be very insular. It's going to be very focused on what we can accomplish and not what we can do for somebody else. And I think that's the thing that really changed in my mind several years ago is we have such an opportunity to be of service to so many organizations in our community. But if we just make it about the cool technology that we can do, it's always only going to be about cool technology. So it's about people.
But I mean, what you just gave there was essentially the epitome of what servant leadership is all about. Servant leadership is all about, if I support my management team supports their frontline people, those frontline people support my client, we're going to do good,
Right.
And it's a difference from how your grandfather managed the business.
Oh my goodness.
In 1960,
Yes.
That shift from the, command and control type model,
right.
To this servant leadership model is really taken off and I think it's being driven heavily by the millennials and to some degree Gen Z, especially the millennials though, because I think you're probably Gen X, or I'm at the older end of Gen X. Gen X, we talked about work-life balance. We talked about all this kind of stuff. But,
it was never achieved.
We're like, okay, we're going to do flex time, which basically meant if I come in late, I'll leave late. If I come in early, I can maybe leave early.
You're still going to get your 40 hours in every week.
You're still going to get 45 or 50 out of me.
Right.
And you're going to come in on the weekend if you need to. We talked about work-life balance. And we did something. We did casual Fridays. Woo! We got to start wearing. We start to go. We got to ditch the tie one day a week and stuff like that. We thought we'd really accomplished something, and then millennials came along and started going BS on that. No, my kid's got a ball game at 4:00. I'm going to be there. And it's interesting. They've really pushed it. And with the boomers now aging out, the Gen Xers who kind of always wanted it, and I think we're a little bit jealous too of, like, gosh, I wish I had had that when I was raising my kids, that sort of thing. But it's just interesting to see how that has transpired. Speaking of kids, I mean, so you're third generation. Do you aspire for your kids to come into this? Do you want to go on record with that or not?
So I would love to. So I started out with the same philosophy that my parents treated me with, that, okay, I'm going to have them in here after school. I'm going to have them in here during the summers. I'm going to, just kind of show them the ropes, but I have no expectation that they're going to actually be a part of the business, because they have their own life that they can live. About a month and a half ago, I was in a family business alliance. Our local chamber of commerce has a family business alliance, and we had a guest speaker from Louisville, Isabella Botero. I'm going to get her last name wrong, but just fascinating. I was having a conversation with her, and I was telling her, this is my philosophy. This is how I plan on treating my children. And she looked at me and she said, Casey, are you building the best business that you can? Are you treating your employees the best way that you know how to treat them? Are you treating your clients with respect and integrity? I was like, yeah. I'm doing all those things. why wouldn't you want your kids to be involved in that?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, okay.
Truth spoken right there too.
I'll rethink my philosophy on that then. And so what will that look like? I don't know. It's such a fresh thought that I'm not sure how I can incorporate that. But I mean, she's absolutely right. There's no reason for me to throw them out into the workforce under somebody else's guidance, under somebody else's leadership, when I think I'm doing it the best. And I don't say that egotistically.
Yeah.
I'm doing the best that I know how to do. So why wouldn't I want them to see how their dad is treating people?
Yeah. That's pretty profound right there. There's a mic drop moment right there.
You go.
I think we found our snippet.
There you go.
For
that's
social
the clip.
post.
I'll have to give you her actual name so you can put that in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just, kind of and we've gone, this has been great. I love this, love your passion, love everything you had to share. So I always end with kind of same question. And that is, advice for that person thinking of going into business. Maybe in this case, maybe someone who's thinking about testing the franchise waters, not necessarily Signarama, but just
Sure.
any kind of business ownership type thing. What is the top piece of advice or pieces of advice you'd share with them?
I think we touched on it a little bit, but I'm going to reiterate it. When you were talking about starting your podcast and you had thought about it, you'd consider all the different angles, and you're finally confronted with, why not?
Yeah.
And another way to think about that is, in 5 years, will I look back at today and regret not starting it?
Mm.
Will I have any fear of regret? Now, you can't just go through life making every decision that way, but
Right.
It's a good way to process those things that you're really thinking about and you're really passionate about. And I've used that this year. It's like, okay, I've been talking about this for years. It's time to start, because in 5 years, I don't want to say I've been thinking about this for years.
Yeah. Amen.
I want to say I tried it. I tried it.
Yeah. In fact, I do. One of the things I work with a lot of my clients on is this concept of mental fitness, getting your mind aligned with your thinking, your business and everything else. And that's actually one of the techniques we teach, is that, when you're wrestling with a tough decision, do that. When I get out of this business, when I retire, when I close, when I look back, what would have been the right decision? Yeah. And of course, 9 times out of 10, it would be like, didn't matter. Wasn't that big of a deal,
Right. Right. Sometimes it's not.
It's like 9 times out of 10, we're stressing over something that's not that big a deal.
It doesn't matter.
It just doesn't really matter. But then that 1 out of 10, I would have done that,
Yeah.
And so, it's a great piece of advice, and it resonates with me because I'm sharing that with people all the time.
Yeah, good. And from an overthinker, to say that,
yeah,
that really means something.
Yeah. It's I think most of us can overthink. People that don't overthink usually end up in ditches.
That could be.
But people, if you overthink too much, you never put the key in the ignition.
You lose opportunities.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's it's back to that happy medium. Well,
Yep.
Casey, it's been great getting to know you. I appreciate your time so much. I know
Absolutely, John.
listeners are going to love this. Great spirit, great energy, great passion. If they want to know more about you, meet you, LinkedIn, the best platform, any other?
Yeah, LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn, Casey Valiant, and I'll be there. I think I'm the only one in the US.
And if you're in the Evansville area and need some signage, here's the guy to talk to.
Come on by. We'd love to help you out.
All right. Well, Casey, thank you very much for your time today. I know everybody will enjoy it.
All right. Thanks a lot, John.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked it, please share or like it on whatever platform you use. You can find me on social media. On most platforms, I'm John K. Jennings. My first book is also available, Your Baby is Ugly tells you about 10 truths that business owners need to hear, but often won't, and how to overcome them. You can find it on Amazon. Just search for Your Baby is Ugly. And be watching for our next episode, where I'll interview another business owner who will share their stories and insights into what it's like to create a great business.